Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another how to draw video. This is part 2 in a 4-part series showing the creation of an illustration all in real time, no time lapse at all. Last week I did these pencils, and today I'm going to be doing the inking. And my inking pen of choice is the Pigma Micron. I'm using the 08, which is rather thick by most people's standards, but later on I'll sort of explain my thinking behind that. For now, I wanted to explain that I have detached the illustration from the table. Normally it's taped down. When I'm inking, I need the freedom to turn the page in different directions, and so hopefully that won't disorient anyone. But let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to start with the hair. Why don't we zoom in just a little bit? Hang on a second. Alright, I thought people who were into inking would like to see this process in a little more detail. So I'm going in here, and I suppose the first thing I would call attention to is the speed with which I'm making some of these strokes. Especially when drawing hair, I feel like I need to make the lines quickly as a way of kind of minimizing the shakiness of my own hand. Sometimes I'll have people say, boy, my hand is so shaky, and I end up with all these messy looking lines. If I were making these lines really slowly, they would also be less smooth than they are right now. Part of what's making them smooth is the speed with which I am laying them down. Of course, when you increase the speed of laying down a stroke, you decrease the precision. And it's sort of a trade-off there. And of course, as you practice for years and years, and I do mean literally years and years, this is not something that you pick up over a period of months, I don't think, and not in my experience. Anyway, as you practice for years and years, you begin to increase your ability to do a little bit of both, to draw quickly but also get a fair amount of precision. Anyone who's watched my videos, you probably heard me sort of say this kind of thing before when it comes to inking, especially inking hair. Now, I noticed that his facial expression looks a little almost nervous and scared, which is not really what I would like to see in my hero. So I'm going to actually make the eyebrow come down more and get more of a look of determination. And in a way, this reveals that, what you have penciled and what you ink can sometimes differ. Of course, you want to try to get as much down in the penciling stage as possible so that you're not just winging it and making it up when you get to the inking stage. But I find that certain key details don't actually get decided on until the inking stage, and I do sort of allow myself the freedom to stray a bit from what I had originally done. Now here's something where I could draw the mouth right now, but instead of doing that, I'm going to go in here and do this part of the cape first, because it's kind of going to come in front of his mouth. So I thought, do the cape first, figure out where that line is, and then draw the mouth, and then you know how much of it is concealed. So part of the inking process comes down to making little decisions like that of what gets inked first. What should I ink first? Oh, and remember, I wanted this to be an arm band of some kind. Almost maybe just decorative, to make his costuming look a little more interesting, or maybe it has some sort of gives him powers. Who knows? I'll leave it to you guys to decide why the armband. In any case, having got that the edge of the cape in place, now I'm going to come in and sort of do the upper reaches of his mouth. And I don't know how much of the rest of his body I want visible over there, but let us keep moving, shall we? I've seen people request do a video about the line width, like varying the line width And that is part of the reason why I choose an 08, which, as I said, is not a super fine point, a rather thick point, because I want to vary my line width. So, like here, I'm using this 08, but I'm going very lightly across, and I don't know if you can see that, but that's quite a thin line, because it's just like a seam in his cloth. Now for his shoulder here, which is an outline of his body, I'm pressing down, and again I'm moving very slowly now, which maybe goes against my what I just said about how you can't, how your slowly drawn lines are going to be shaky. Not necessarily. I mean, again, there's a little bit of a shake right there. I don't know if that shows up, but with practice you can get a smooth line even when moving slowly. But in any case, I pressed down really hard and got a thick line, and that's because I'm dropping. It's because I know how to drop my pen. And with many years of practice, you too can learn how to drop your pen. By using the 08 and pressing down, the line gets thick. So you get that really big contrast of thick line versus thin line. Now, I have not actually done a video that dwells too much on varying line width. Part of it is because a lot of the illustrations that I do on this channel are manga related, and it seems to me the majority of manga illustrations don't vary the line width nearly as much as American comic books do. So I suppose I haven't been making, huge variations in line width. I haven't been making that a big part of what I do on this channel, but it certainly is a worthy topic. So watch this space. Perhaps I will have a video on, varying line width in the weeks ahead. One thing that I've noticed here that's irritating me a little is that this bag is kind of not sufficiently crossing in front of his hand. Sometimes it can be awkward when you have lines that don't, you have to be maybe decisive and say, come on, man, is this thing in front of his hand or is it not touching his hand at all, in terms of the lines touching? Sometimes it's better to just make it very clear which object is in front of the other, and that's why I'm pausing and pulling out the pencil, which is, again, something you may do. Just because you completed the penciling stage largely doesn't mean that you stop using the pencil completely. You may say, boy, I'm going to redo this part before I commit to ink. So that's, you can see me doing that. And I'll come over here and, just as I did with that edge of the cape, do this line first so that I know where to draw the line when it comes time to drawing that fist. And I might even change, I think I'm going to go ahead and change this to like a buckle system. It seems like that would be more in keeping with his character than, I think I had like a snap kind of a button or something. And just on the fly, going to change that. I hope, please forgive me if this goes out of frame anytime I detach the page and it starts sort of spinning around on the table, and especially because I've zoomed in a little bit, there are probably times when I'm going out of frame, and I do apologize for that. Notice I'm holding off on doing that sword. That is a line I will definitely do with a ruler. Let me check the time. 8 minutes. I am going to try not to have any one of these videos go too long. But last week, what was it, 25 minutes? We'll see how long the inking process takes. Again, you see me kind of trying to move somewhat quickly. Sometimes the line begins slowly, and then I just increase speed at the end as I feel a little more confident that I got things where I wanted them to be. Now I keep thinking of that line about the capes from the Incredibles. Why did I have him wearing a cape? He's probably going to die in the heat of battle because of that stupid cape. And I did talk last time about sort of imagining where the arm attaches to the body very often sort of, the pencil lines are there, but sometimes I don't draw exactly on my original line. I try to maybe improve a little, or who knows, be spontaneous. I think to me it's to completely go over each and every line with ink exactly the way you first did it is a little boring, and I suppose in some ways I will deliberately stray from that original line just to keep things interesting for myself. Not exactly a great artistic reason for doing it. Notice that I'm turning the hand in space before I ink it. This is not so much about the position of my pen on the paper. It's more like I can recognize the hand when I see it from this point of view more. I think just anatomically looking at it, I understand the fingers and how they should fit together when I'm looking at the page from this point of view. So that's kind of what that's all about. Apologies if this is not the most beautiful hand you ever saw. You're not really apologizing. There was zero sincerity in that apology, Mark. Let's come across here to the forearm. Try not to give him big Popeye forearms. And yeah, like I said last week, that getting that grip. Now his hand does not look very tightly gripped. I'm hoping just by getting indications of the knuckles in there, maybe I can increase the appearance of his hand being gripped, but tightly on the hilt of the sword. But again, I'm not a huge expert on drawing people using swords. I haven't had years and years of experience doing that, so in a way, this is still practice for me. And incidentally, part of this is that I'm going to get the ruler. As I said, I want to ink this sword with the use of my trusty ruler. I was almost going to say trusty black Prismacolor. Can my ruler be trusty too? I think it can. Anyway, part of this is in my preparations for mastering Manga 3. I want there to be more of an emphasis on action poses that have a sense of motion to them. And thank you to all of you who responded to my video a few weeks back about mastering Manga 3 and requesting your advice in terms of what should the book contain, what topics should it cover. And I just saw again and again people saying action poses, action poses. I need help with action poses, and so I thought, the people have spoken, and let us listen to them and make sure that Mastering Manga 3 has a lot of action poses. Well, as I've sort of revealed, I'm not a huge expert in action poses. Brody's Ghost had a fair amount of action in it, but not enough to turn me into some kind of incredible expert on drawing fight poses action. And indeed, I have confessed to my own, my own drawings having a certain amount of stiffness to them. Even this drawing has a certain amount of stiffness to it. Fluidity in illustrations is not my strong suit. But I'm hoping by making it an emphasis in Mastering Manga 3, I will sort of force myself to work at it and get a little better at it. So, anyway. Little sidebar there about why I decided to make this a action pose. Well, speaking of Mastering Manga 3, maybe I can talk a little more about that. As I said, I'm trying to not hold myself too strictly to talking only about what I'm drawing in this video as a sort of strategy for working in a no time-lapse environment. It is sort of imperative, I feel, that I continue talking, but I found last week that it did help to allow myself to sometimes talk about other topics. So let's talk a little bit about Mastering Manga 3. I have decided that one of the emphases, one of the things I'm trying to emphasize in the book is character creation. And I know people want advice on how to create characters. I think that the characters are at the heart of almost any manga you read, and so I'm trying to make that a fairly substantial part of the book. And to that end, I kind of want a lot of the illustrations, even the step-by-step illustrations, I want them to look like actual characters. One thing you will notice about in Mastering Manga 1 and 2, and I think this is true of a lot of how to draw books, is that you present like how to draw, a manga boy in a 3/4 point of view or whatever it is, and you end up drawing a kind of generic looking boy, because I guess the idea is, well, let me give you the basics here, and then you can turn it into a character later on. And there's a certain logic to that in terms of creating a book, but you end up with this book filled with generic-looking faces, and I thought, okay, I've done 2 books like that. Let's try a book in which each one of the illustrations looks like an actual character, has the sort of details and specificity of an actual character. So that's one thing that you're going to be looking for in Mastering Manga 3 is, the sample illustrations will not have that kind of generic type of drawing where it doesn't look like you could imagine seeing this in an actual book. Really, my goal is to have almost all of them remind you of actual manga characters you've seen, without, straying into the realm of copyright infringement and actually drawing a character. Like, I would like to do one character that sort of looks like he could be in the Bleach, for example. Okay, without it actually being a Bleach character, which I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do in a how to draw book. Have a character that sort of looks like he might fit into that universe. And in a way, that's the other of the twin goals that I have for this book is characters, having focused a lot on characters, and then I have it also focus quite a bit on style. I want, one of my regrets about a how to draw a manga book of any kind is that it does sort of need to present a single style and hold to that style for an awful lot of the step-by-step drawing lessons. Well, as a book creator, you're stuck with sort of choosing one style to represent all of manga, which is kind of outrageous. There's so many different styles, and so I thought, again, I did that with the first 2 books, although there are a variety of styles represented in those books. But I think within the step-by-step lessons, they do sort of all hold within a certain range. My other goal with Mastering Manga 3 is to really vary the styles. So that you see a very shoujo, girls' romance manga kind of a style. Then you turn the page and then you see total shonen, gritty, maybe more, semi-realistic looking anatomy kind of thing. And I really would love to have a book that represents the full breadth of styles that you see in the world of manga. And I have fun, actually, attempting to replicate various different styles. It becomes sort of study for me in a way. So that's the other thing that you can look for. So maybe I'll say another thing about inking using a ruler. I've got a ruler that is sort of raised off the page, the straight edge. There's a gap which allows the ink part of the pen to not be rubbing up against the ruler. Some of you maybe have had that experience where the ink ends up touching the ruler, and then you pull the ruler back and it smears all across the page in a very unpleasant way. So you might look for, this is sort of beveled in such a way that it raises up off of the paper and doesn't smear the ink. Otherwise, I know some people object in a way to the idea of using a ruler. They think, well, you shouldn't ever use a ruler, that is cheating, and you should draw every line by hand. But again, if you look at, professional published manga, there's just rulered lines all over the place. You can just see that this is not all free-handed. Although, yeah, there is a liveliness and a naturalness to an illustration that has no lines that were drawn with a ruler. I mean, I can see how some people would feel that they should never ever use a ruler. And in some illustrations, I will refrain from using a ruler. But for the most part, if I want a straight line, I don't have any problem grabbing a ruler and letting that tool help me do the job, as it has done for people for centuries. So there you go. Come down off of my soapbox, speaking in defense of rulers. Enough of the persecution of rulers. And yeah, I think this week we're going to end up with a slightly shorter video. What have we got now? 20 minutes? Yeah, a little shorter than last week. But happily the inking process went pretty smoothly, and it doesn't look like I'm going to need a whole much more time. Oh, I'm so eloquent. But I hope you're enjoying this series. Many thanks to those of you who stick with it. I think this one is for the few and the proud. I think I'm predicting. Last time when I did this, the first video got the most views, I think. The second one got fewer. The third one got even fewer than that. And then, interestingly, the fourth one kind of came back. So I think some people sort of skipped the intervening videos and then just watched they watched the first and the last. But it is a worthy exercise, I think, to attempt periodically to do a series of videos with no time lapse at all, let you see the pace at which I work. I know a lot of people have said that it helps them a lot. Like when I did that shading video of the Pietà, the sculpture, a month or so back. A lot of people said they didn't realize how slowly my shading process progressed. Because I'm normally doing that in time lapse. You get the idea that I maybe shade quite quickly. So this time you really are seeing the pace of everything, and probably in most cases you're finding that it's surprisingly slow. But I would rather go, work slowly and get it right than to work quickly and end up with a mess of a drawing. Because people don't accept that as an excuse, when they say, your drawing doesn't look so good. Yeah, well, I did it really fast, it's like that. No one cares with the speed. They want to see a really good drawing. Yeah, maybe I can pull back a little here. Let's see, I'll just do this on the fly so that where is that thing? The knob on the camera. Crilly, find it quickly. People are waiting. There we go with my finished inking for this week. I really appreciate you watching this video. Of course, as always, thanks to anyone who gets my books, Brody's Ghost, Miki Falls, Mastering Manga, and the Realism Challenge. Always very, very appreciative of people who support me that way. But let's go ahead and lay down this pen. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll be back with another one real soon.